Hi, everybody. Welcome to The New Normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa, and things are happening in Oklahoma. Governor Stitt is at it again. So proud of our constitutional governor. He's telling the big banks, like, get in with big oil, get in with the natural gas, or get out. So he's doing what's right for our state. I'm really proud of him. And I'm going to talk to Johnny. What does that look like as these other banks are failing and the big banks are gobbling them up? If they're all we have left and the governor says, get out, where do we go? Be right back right after this. Give us a like and share this video. Welcome back, Johnny. Good to see you.
Hey, Lisa. Good to see you.
Yeah, Mom's in the chat. Of course, you're here
Nana,
today. So
my favorite.
Nana's here.
We blow Nana a kiss.
Yes, she loves you. So that's great. I'm glad to see Mom in the chat. And Letha D is in the chat. I got your silver out to you, Letha. Thanks so much for bidding on that. That helped Mame and helped us raise money to honor my daughter, celebrate her life, and help out a family member in the crypto fam. So appreciate you. And Tom was here, of course, supporting all of our efforts the other weekend. So good to see you all in the chat. Thanks so much for joining us. So I know you liked my comment on Twitter, and we were just talking. You said you saw that. Now I've got to find it again. Oh, I've been tweeting up a storm.
The article about these, how your state is kicking out these woke, these woke bankers.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. One of the things is Sean has mentioned this before, like, even if, like, let's say coal, or in this case, oil and gas, these ESGers are saying that, oil and gas is so bad for the environment. And oh God, we should all drive these little shitty electric cars and whatever. And my governor for Oklahoma has said, look, some of the best known banking and finance, including Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, are all kind of taking these stands against oil and gas companies, and they could be blacklisted by the state. And so if that ends up happening, because we're already seeing these, let me see, we're already seeing these, I guess JP Morgan's bought up most of these failed banks recently. So if they end up being like the big mega banks, holding all the bags, where will we go? Like, where will everyone go? I know we usually try to tell people, to really look into, to stay away from those kind of big banks, the investment banks, the ones that don't have to boss you around with your money and tell you what to do with it. We tell people, to go to a credit union or a private bank, something where you have a voice. But I really think this is interesting that they are telling them the state of Oklahoma will not do business with financial firms who boycott oil and gas companies.
I don't blame them. It's time for states to take more power back. If oil and gas is a big revenue stream and source in your state and a big part of the economy, and these woke companies and banks and financial institutions come in with this ESG stuff.
Oh, wow.
Then they boycott them. I don't see why.
BlackRock is listed on here. They have a list: BlackRock, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, State Street Corp, Gosfernor Cap Management, Lexington, First Mark, Torture Stone. Torchstone. That's a
Torchstone.
Why would they spell it like that? Torchstone? Is that right?
Torchstone VC Global Partners.
Okay, I'm just reading it wrong. Yeah, you're right. WCM Investment Management, William Blair, Actis, Climate First Bank.
Climate First. Well, what does that tell you? Climate First.
That's the one that Daddy-O said, oh, Climate First Bank. I wouldn't see Lisa using that bank.
No. No, I don't think people that watch that show would use that bank.
No. Mm-mm.
But it is time states take more power back. Again, it's all part of their plan is that, ooh, the feds, the federal government, it's so powerful. The feds, this and that, yada, yada, yada. Mm-mm. America was founded on equal power amongst executive, state, and federal. They all are supposed to have an equal balance of power, or judicial, federal, state. They're all supposed to have an equal balance of power, not the federal government's this behemoth and they slam down on anything the state says at any time. So states have rights. And exactly, local gov, states first. If there's something that's important to your state and banks don't want it, then you should not have them in your state operating.
Right.
You should not. Now, I feel like a lot of this, we're seeing a lot of these banks go down right now. I think Western Alliance, if they didn't go down yet, they're on the verge of going down. I mean, they're teetering on the ropes. PacWest went down yesterday, and First Republic went down the beginning of the week. These are all large players. I mean, they're not JP Morgan Chase, but First Republic was the 13th largest bank in the U.S. That's big. I think PacWest was the 34th largest. That's still big. So my thinking is this is all part of their plan to consolidate it, to come up with some type of legislation where you have to use these systemically important banks. They're going to protect you. Go to Wells, go to JP Morgan, go to those guys. They're going to keep your money safe. And as much as I don't like any banks, we still got to like competition. As far as a lot of the smaller banks did more lending to companies. I mean, if you're a company, you need any type of loan that's deemed anything risky, you're not going to go to Bank of America for it. You're going to have to go to a bank farther down on that list. So now what does that say? If it's only, say we're left with 6 or 8 banks and that's it. I mean, that's, and then they're all in cahoots together with this ESG stuff and all this other stuff.
And we know who wins. When there's centralization, the people lose.
People lose.
Yeah, we end up with Walmart and Target as our options. And
and then they'll share databases and then say, hey, if your behavior is bad or whatever, nobody will bank you. So they'll all share this. They do that right now in the payment processing world. They call it, so if you have a merchant account for processing credit card payments and it gets shut down for whatever reason, they put you on what's called TMF/match list. And then that goes out to all processors. So if you go to apply with another processor, they say, sorry, you're on TMF or match. We can't approve your account. So it's a way to kind of
that's a way for like businesses can't be able to have
so businesses
processing.
Exactly.
Wow.
I see this all the time, and people come to set up an account, and I put it in. Sometimes it gets approved in the beginning, and then they shut it down like a day later, and they're like, TMF. I said, oh, you're on this TMF list. And they're like, what do I do? And I'm like, you got to really like redesign how you went about things in order to get some type of payment processing again. So all
what they have to do, like collapse their business and start over? Like,
yeah, I mean, in theory, in that they'd have to set up a new corporation in another person's name. Like they'd have to do a lot of different things it couldn't be at the same address as where they live because they cross-reference that, make sure you don't use like a relative or something. So point is they do this to put pressure on these businesses. And this is all stuff that I saw working in the payments world that led me to Bitcoin. And like I was talking to somebody today, And he said, Johnny, he said, I was telling somebody about you yesterday. I said, well, I hope all good stuff, right? He said, no. He said, you've been on the currency collapsing thing forever. And he reminded me, I was talking about this before I even knew about Bitcoin. He goes, you didn't even know about Bitcoin yet. And you were saying that something was going to happen with the currency, that the processing, that it was too messed up behind the scenes and it couldn't sustain itself. And I said, just everything I saw, it wasn't a fair system. There's too much fraud they don't care about. They blacklist people. They can shut down your business whenever they want. A couple of years back, they attacked vape stores and smoke shops. And they shut down all the small vape stores. But they let the big players like CVS and those guys still sell vape. Now, they did that to consolidate it so just the biggest companies can do it. How's that fair?
It's kind of like what they did with the CBD. The little guys were trying to make it in the THC here in Oklahoma. And you you spend so much money on licensing that only the big like mega company, internet, nationwide companies could come in with their CBD lines. Sure. For their nationwide, and they can afford all the big licensing and whatever and swing that. And they had their big storefront, with the CBD, and they had all their attorneys and whatever, and they'd already done all that stuff. But it just kicked out the little guy. And that's what we're seeing over and over. And, COVID, of course, destroyed the mom and pop business in restaurants, in a lot of small businesses,
Another thing they do is in the processing world, another dirty little secret. If your business is deemed risky, they'll approve your account and then say you have to fund what's called a cash reserve. It means you have to put money up as collateral for the privilege of processing credit card payments. Now, in my personal experience with accounts I've dealt with, I've seen this go as high as a $10 million cash reserve they wanted from a business. So most little businesses don't have any money to put up as collateral to process payments. I mean, never mind $1 million, $5 million. So basically they do it to be like, well, sorry, you can't operate that. Only the big people, I guess, can do it because they have the backing, they have the money to do it. And a lot of people out there don't even see this as unfair. I tell this to a lot of people. They're like, well, they should have the money then or be well collateralized. How is that fair for we the people?
No, and that it goes against like our constitutional rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like that is the American dream, that you could come here and you could work hard and you could start a business and make something of yourself and for your family and have a future. So then having to be collateralized, that's like that whole accredited investor bullshit. That's
Bingo, you read my mind. I was just going to bring that up as an example. I talked to people too, and I said, well, how's that fair? They said, well, I'm an accredited investor, talking about themselves. I said, okay, but how's that fair for someone else that wants to invest in those? They said, whoa, they should have the money then. I'm like, yeah, but you got to that point. How do they get to that point? That's not a fair system.
It's not.
It's not fair.
Free markets, peer-to-peer, free markets. In fact, ICANN, which is the Investors Choice Advocate Network, and I did an interview with them on the Very Dow channel. I've done a couple with Nick Morgan from ICANN on the Very Dow channel, and they actually got helped get a thing passed to get rid of the what we just said it
accredited investor
thing. Yeah, they're really fighting to get that removed. I can't remember where they are in the process of that, but they're fighting to get that removed for people. So just trying to
it's not
make it
none of this again, it's not a fair system. So that everything I saw in my experience, again, I came to Bitcoin and Litecoin from a different lens that I saw it through, because I saw the bad stuff in the financial system. I questioned things. So this guy that I was talking to reminded me, he said, Johnny, you've been on this forever talking about this. He goes, and now it's happening. he goes, and I told him, I said, well, there's another bank going down today. And he's like, oh my God. So I said, well, I got to watch some videos tonight. I'll get you more info in the morning. So we're going to chat again in the morning. I've been on.
Have the conversation. Was it the same friend that you had the conversation about? Like, if I had known what I know now in 2020, was it 2003? What would I have put my money into? If
different friend. So
different friend,
that story I told yesterday, I was at a restaurant having lunch with friends. Great time we had. Thank you, friends. They treated me. So thank you, friends, for lunch. We had a good time. Greg was with me. He drank some wine. I'm not drinking much right now. I had like 5 espressos. I was wired. So
oh my gosh. Well, we love Greg. Greg comes to the meetups when we go to Jersey, and if we're anywhere around.
Greg really tries to wake people up, and he talks to all our merchants where he talks more than me. A lot of times I get a gauge from the people, and a lot of people I just say, well, they're not ready to even hear this. I'm not even going to talk to them about it. He just sit there and tries to argue with them and talk to them about it. I'm just like, Greg, they're not like, this is like, you're showing them karate moves and they can't move. You know what I mean? It's like, they can't do this type of move. So, but the restaurant that we were at had sold. So we were talking with the old owner's son who came over, and he was really awake to what's going on as far as like the financial. And the old owner said, Greg, my son has some questions for you. We thought it was about the POS system or that.
Oh, yeah.
And he had questions about silver, about the banks. And he said that, well, Lisa cut out. You back, Lisa?
I did. I can see you. That's so weird.
I'm talking to myself.
No, I can see you.
Lisa,
I can see
she
the whole
looks frozen on my end. Just say in the chat if you guys can hear me talking, or if Lisa shows is frozen, just so I know it's not just on my end. Let's see. Are you coming back, Lisa?
And hear you.
Oh, looks like
that's so weird. Oh, good. Okay, you can hear us both. So maybe it's just maybe it was just Johnny. Okay. That was so weird. I thought it was me. Lisa is 5 by 5. Okay. So I thought it was Johnny thought it was me, and I thought it was him, and how weird. Johnny was in and out. Johnny was frozen. Okay. Well, maybe he'll pop back in. So we were having a quick conversation right before we started. Hopefully he'll jump back in and have this conversation, because I thought it was so interesting. I'm so curious what he's going to tell us. And I want to know what you guys think. Yes, Nana, Johnny needs to come back. He was saying like, oh, if I had known what I know now, if I'd known then what I know now, in 2020 or 2003, I would have put like, because we didn't have Bitcoin or crypto then, I would have put my money in. So he said my computer went offline. He was texting me. He'll be back in a minute though. He said I would have put my money in gold and silver, to get through that crash that we went through in 2008 and all of that. And so I was like, man, okay, so if we're going through this transition now, what would we put our money in now? Like if 20 years from now, what would we look back and say, oh, I wish I would have known what I know now? And what would you put your money in now? And so I'll go ahead and tell you what I would put mine in. And I would put it in silver. I would not put it in gold. Because I think gold's already at all-time high. I also have my conspiracy theory that I think the elites keep their money in gold and $100 bills, US $100 bills. And so I think those two things are going to go away at some point, or be, Westwood says whiskey, dogs, and cigars. Westwood says he's going to keep his money in whiskey, dogs, and cigars for the next
I'm back,
year.
guys. I'm back. So
Yeah.
sorry about that. That's, you always wonder when you're talking about something when they take you offline.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, Lisa, I couldn't see you for a minute. You were cutting out.
I know. Well, and I was sitting there talking to you. I was like, no, I can see you. I can hear you. And then they were like, no, Lisa, in the chat, people are like, no, we can see you. So right, it was very strange. I don't know.
All right. So back to my story. So
yes, back to your story.
I'm at this restaurant. Old owner's son comes over, and owner says, hey, Greg, we got some questions for you. And I thought it was about the processing. And he came over and he had questions about silver, about a particular crypto. He actually was asking about Theta, because Greg's big into Theta. Mm. And then he asked about if what's going to happen if the government shuts down, and is that going to will that shut the banks down? So I actually said that because the Federal Reserve isn't the government. So I said the banks are shutting down anyways, regardless, but the federal government shutting down doesn't necessarily shut the banks down. Greg said he thinks it would. I said it'll probably cause systemic pressure and lead to more banking. I said, but I wouldn't expect day one, if the government shuts down, for your bank not to work. Now, right, you might be with a bank that goes under, and that's a different story. But remember, Federal Reserve is about as Federal Express. Mm-hmm. The government shuts down. I don't know. So
this is me going off on a tangent, but it goes kind of along with it. But I've been doing some research on some stuff, and there's a new gold-backed crypto out of, is it India? And it's being supported by or moved through their post office, their postal service, which, our U.S. Postal Service has all the patents for that and the patents for the voting, and originally was our banking system back when our nation was being founded. So
a lot of people feel Bix is one of them, but I've heard other people bring it up that they think the post offices could be the banks in the future because of how they're set up. They kind of seem to have that infrastructure, I guess, if you look at them. So when we were talking to this kid, that's actually a good story for why all this stuff makes sense. It's all about, so people say, well, can Bitcoin go to zero, or silver go to zero, or -40? Anything could happen in dollars or Federal Reserve notes. That's the system they control. But it's always going to have value. They might push it down for a day or two. But remember, it's going to have value. These are commodities. They cost money to create. That's part of the value prop of these things. Like, what gives silver value or gold value? Well, it's not free to create it. It costs money to pull it out of the ground. What gives Bitcoin its value? It costs money to mine it. These computer resources, this energy. Value makes the world go round, right? So I brought up a story to everybody because we were arguing. Other people came in the conversation. Oh, yeah. One guy, one of our friends came in, and he said that nothing's going to happen because the politicians, they have more to lose than us. They've always fixed it, so they're going to fix it. And Greg was saying, you better get out of dollar. Greg kept telling me, you better get out of the dollar. And I brought up a story. I said, say 20 years ago, you got abducted by aliens. Right before they took you to where they were going to bring you. They said, okay, you got 5 minutes to store your wealth for the future. And you had $100,000 in cash, Federal Reserve notes at the time, in a briefcase. Now, what are you gonna keep those in Federal Reserve notes? What are you gonna do with the money? Are you gonna buy whiskey and cigars like Westwood
and dogs? Yes,
dogs. What are you gonna buy? And I brought up a story about, had you bought gold or silver, and I used gold. I said gold was between $300 and $400 at that time. Now gold's over $2,000 an ounce.
Mm-hmm.
So had you put $100,000 into gold, you'd have at least $500,000. Now, had you held those Federal Reserve notes, that's old money. Most of those would have been probably little face hundreds, little face 50s. Most businesses, you can't even actually spend the little face Federal Reserve notes anymore because they don't scan through their machinery that they have. They have machines that scan bills. They do not scan the old money. So would you want to be stuck with $100,000 in those notes?
No, and there are presidents right now. I mean, I'm jumping ahead, but there are presidents all over the world right now having public speeches telling their people, get out of the US dollar. So
we know the Kenyan president, that was the big one. He came out, and there's other ones too. So then our other friend came over, and he actually said, well, he asked me, he said, is there any backing of the dollar still by gold? See, a lot of people still think this because they hear about Fort Knox. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, there's no backing of the dollar by gold. I said, they used to consider the dollar the petrodollar. And then Greg actually said, well, that system ended. I said, exactly, Greg, that system ended because there's certain countries that are trading oil in other currencies. I said Chinese yuan being the main one, Russian ruble being another one.
Now they're doing the Indian rupee.
Rupee, yes.
For some.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the other day.
Well, point being, looking at the day-to-day price gets frustrating. Mm-hmm. But it's all about the value over time. And if anybody brings up to you and says, well, if you put all your money into Bitcoin at 69,000, or you put all your money into silver at $50 10 years ago or whatever. Oh, shit, I got water in my basement. I might have to go in a minute.
Oh, okay.
Oh, shit. That's kind of an emergency.
That's not good. Well, right before you go. So what would you, if aliens just landed in your basement and you've got to,
I'm going to make them clean up the water.
Clean up the water, make them clean up the water. But where would you put your wealth right now? And you're going to be needing it in 20 years.
I would put my wealth into 4 different things. I would put my wealth into, if I had that same $100,000 in the briefcase, I'd put $25,000 into gold, $25,000 into silver. I would not buy American Eagles. I would buy probably at this point, maybe silver bars to get better value or something of that nature, because the Eagles, there's too big of a premium on.
Them.
Gold, I might buy the gold Eagles. Are we going?
Oh, I think you're sketching out again on me. We might have to let Johnny go. He's got a flooded basement. His computer's skipping out. All right. I can hear you again. Give me gold.
Was that me, Lisa, cutting out, or was that you cutting out?
It's you. No, it's you.
I think because I got that water in the basin. So I would put some in gold Eagles because they have a lower premium. Silver, maybe just bars.
Yeah.
25% in each of those. 25% in Litecoin. It's never failed. And 25% in Bitcoin. And that's how I would roll.
Brilliant.
And I would keep your private keys in a time capsule. use a wallet that has 24 seed words instead of 12 seed words in case there's some type of way to break the 12 seed word wallet. The wallets that have 24 seed words are going to be a lot harder to break.
Oh,
and
okay.
Because that's something you got to think about. What if there's AI that can break into the wallets or whatever? And that's how I would roll. And I would wake up in 20 years and I guarantee I'd have, even if one of those assets, say, didn't do well, you'd put it in a combination and I would definitely have more than that $100,000 in spending power.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm going to let you
tell
go.
The aliens clean the water in my basement first.
Yeah. I'll let you go and clean out your basement.
Yes.
I'm going to share with everybody. We're going to have a class this weekend. Westwood and I are teaching a class for Crypto 101 and kind of an Ask Us Anything at 10 a.m. Central on Saturday. You can go to likequeenlisa.net and sign up on the very front page. Where did I go? I'm lost over here. You can online interactive classes, go right here, click that and sign up for the class this Saturday. And you can find other information. You can also go to the events page there and find out more information about our meetup in June at Westwood's in Peoria. So I'll let you go clean up your basement.
Thanks, Lisa. Definitely go to Lisa and Westwood's class. They do a great job. And if you have any questions about cryptos, that's a great time to ask.
Thanks. And thanks everybody for joining us in the live chat. Please give us a like, share the video. And if you're watching this later, give us a comment and let us know what you would hold for the next 20 years to preserve your wealth. Take care.
Later, guys.
Bye.